Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome back to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and today I am delighted to welcome back to the show a man that I have great respect for, Dr. Ken Atchity. Now, Ken Atchity is a renowned story merchant. He's an author, producer, literary manager, and a former professional with a Yale PhD. He has written over 20 books. I have a lot of them on my shelf here. He has produced more than 30 films, including The Meg and The Life or Something Like It, and many others, and he has launched dozens of best-selling authors and screenwriters. Now, his career spans from teaching to publishing and Hollywood, and it's all driven by his passion for finding and championing great stories and storytellers. Now, this episode today is proudly sponsored by Devin Blaine and the Blaine Group Incorporated. When you need to be seen, heard, and remembered, Devin is the powerhouse you want in your corner. The Blaine Group is a total communications agency specializing in media relations, crisis management, and high-impact publicity that gets results. So whether you're launching a book, building your brand, or navigating a critical moment, Devin and her team know how to move the needle. So visit theblainegroup.inc.com and discover how they can help you stand out and stay ahead. Now, Ken has been a guest on Your Partner in Success Radio before, and it's always an honor to welcome him back. Today, we're diving into his powerful new book, 50 Irrelevance Who Rocked the World. It is a deeply inspiring tribute to outsiders, underdogs, and unlikely makers who reshaped history on their own terms. The word irrelevance, I'm going to stumble on that now, comes from sports, science, the arts, activism, business, and more, demonstrating that underdogs can emerge anywhere. Good morning, Ken, and welcome back to the show. It's always good to hear your voice.
Hey, Denise, you too. I miss talking to you.
It's been too long, and I wanted to thank you for sending your book to me. I've got it right here. It's open. You know I don't mark up books. It's got sticky notes all over it.
Thank you.
It's
I,
getting
I
bad.
love getting copies of my book with sticky notes and marks in them.
I can't mark. My librarian from my childhood would rear up out of her grave and get me with a ruler. It's stuck. I don't mark up books and I don't crack the spines too badly. So anyway, it's so good to have you back. Before we dive in, can you share with our audience a bit about you, how you approach your work, the way you choose to show up in the world, and the kind of impact you strive to have through your storytelling and your projects?
Well, I've been obsessed by stories since I was probably 6 years old or younger, because I was born in Louisiana, a few miles from where you are. And
Right.
are you still in Lafayette?
Yep, very close to it.
Yeah, and I was in Eunice.
I know.
uh, right up the road. And I spent much of my early childhood on the front porch of the farmhouses that I grew up in, and listening to my uncles tell stories. And one thing I noticed is that some of my uncles were incredible storytellers, where you wouldn't even think of leaving the porch to get a refill on your coffee. And others, you thought of every excuse you could to, I'll be back in a minute. And I started listening to how they were telling stories and listening how other people told them and how jokes and stories are really the same. And then I realized that the whole world was made of stories. As somebody said, the world is not made of atoms, it's made of stories. And I never forgot that and went on to write stories, edit stories in high school and college and graduate school. And then as a professor, I was, professor of literature. So I was always analyzing stories. And then at some point in my middle age, I decided I wanted to be on the manufacturing side of storytelling, where we made movies of stories and made books and so on. So I've been in publishing and film ever since, turning stories into books and books into films and so on. So it's been a lifelong passion for me, and and it never ends. I'm just involved up to my nose in it right at the moment, working on getting Mr. Irrelevant turned into a film.
Oh, really? I didn't know it was going to be a film.
Yeah, yeah, it's we're deeply into it. We're interviewing directors now and uh, thrilled with people seeing, the vision that we're hearing from them.
Well, that is great news. Listen, when I got this book, I had the PDF and then this landed and I sat with it over the weekend and really went through it. That's where all the sticky notes came from. But in your introduction to 50 Irrelevants Who Rock the World, you start by talking about how the term Mr. Irrelevant was coined in the NFL. And it was originally a playful jab at the last draft pick each year. And that made me smile because, as you know, my very dear friend, the late Dr. Jim Tunney, known as the Dean of NFL Referees, used to share wonderful stories about how that tradition started and evolved. So straight out of the chute, I was smiling.
Sorry?
I said straight out of the chute, I was smiling.
Yeah, great. I'm glad that rang a bell for you.
It did. So what inspired you to write this book and why focus on the people that were labeled irrelevant? That just seems so sad in a way.
Well, it is sad when you're irrelevant, but fighting through that and becoming known and recognized for your talents is one of the most exhilarating things a human being can do. Um, and it's always been amazing to me because I sometimes when you're trying to achieve things you haven't yet done that, you can feel lost and irrelevant and wonder why you're working your head off. But then the minute something happens that turns that over, and you receive a book in the mail that you spent years trying to write, or you see a movie that was an incredible fight to get produced, um, and when you see other people doing that, starting with football, of course, when you see Brock Purdy, uh, you know, almost win the Super Bowl in his first time out, you're thrilled for people and realize that for all those people who are trying, you just hope they never give up. I mean, that's something even Churchill said during the Second World War: never give up, never give up, never give up. And it's the hardest thing to do if you're human, is to never give up. It's so much simpler to go sit in front of the TV and, veg out. But if there's something thrilling to be a person who just kept going. I mean,
Yeah.
I've sold books that I've tried to sell 5 years later and call the author to say I have a sale, and he says, "Oh my God, I've completely forgotten about that book." But, I don't forget. I just wait for the opportunity, keep working until it comes. And to me, it's the part that makes you feel alive.
I agree with you. And you opened the book with a vivid, very vivid image of people tap dancing on the narrowest bridge in the world. And that bridge is the bridge that links dream with reality. How did that metaphor come to you?
Well, I've had so many times in my long career where I had no idea how I was going to make it till the next month or sometimes the next weekend, and couldn't figure it out. But as you do it over and over again, hundreds of times, you start realizing that that tiny edge that you're dancing on is much wider than you thought it was, and there is room for maneuvering. And if but you have to focus. You have to be totally focused, because a razor's edge is not what normal people would choose as a dance floor. So um, that's what I meant by that, is that the longer you practice the impossible, the easier it becomes. And it's not ever easy, really, but the more possible it becomes. Let's put it that way.
I agree with you. And while you were talking about that, I was thinking that you've identified four forces that seem to shape success stories: dream, drive, audience and fortune. And I wrote down focus, and there you said it before I could even ask. So why are these the magic combination in your opinion?
Well, because you keep seeing them over and over again in all these stories that we collected. We see that those are the four regular virtues, the regular practices that people do, to keep doing it. So you just persist. I mean, one of my favorite examples was Colonel Sanders, who kept adjusting his chicken recipe until finally it became, a worldwide force in the industry. Uh, but he was not young anymore. He was in his 60s or 70s when he became so well known. And you know, Joan of Arc, she just kept riding her horse and doing what her voices told her to do until she kicked the British out of France and got the Dauphin crowned. Um, she just persisted. And it started for her, it started with a dream. It started with angels and saints appearing to her and telling her what she had to do. And she was only 16 or something when she started,
She was
and
very
she
young.
never ridden a horse. It's like if you keep looking at stories like this, I used to tell my students when I was a professor, if you have a story in your mind and you haven't sat down and wrote it, you are being irresponsible because that story is meant for the human race, and without your writing it, we'll never get it. So you've got to do it. You've got to write it. And so I divide the world into two people, the people who uh, ignore their voices and never give us those stories that we could have had, and those who buckle down and get it done no matter what it takes them.
I've heard you say that before, and it kind of resonates in my mind because I'm writing a book for the Closer series. Bengay the Third wrote these books, and they're known as the Sales Bibles. And he told me, I have a Wednesday podcast with him, and he told me during one of our conversations that I was going to write a book. I said, man, I got whiny. I said, I know, I've been trying to write it forever, and I've got an epic blank page. And he used a tone of voice with me. I think it was his, I'm the boss, shut up and listen. I've never heard him talk to me in this particular tone. It wasn't ugly, but it was very firm. He said, Denise, you're going to write a book. And I said, okay. And that was the end of that. And I hear you. I hear your voice in my head saying exactly what you're saying, you just said. And between the two of you, I don't have any other options. So thank you for that.
Well, good. You got to write it and send it to me.
I will. I will. I would love for you to read it before it publishes. I'm in the editing phase now, but I would be honored if you would take a look at it.
Sure. Anytime. I'm waiting.
Me too. I'm so, so close. But I wanted to ask you, from Harriet Tubman, we all know who Harriet Tubman is, to TikTok stars, which I honestly don't know much about. How did you decide who made this list? And this is really what I'm curious about. Were there any that you fought hard to include?
Yeah, there were issues. There are always political issues that you have to consider. And there was the girl who's made herself famous worldwide for trying to save the ecology. Uh, we wanted her to be in the book, and then she started becoming very political, um, and saying bad things about a huge group of people who are at war right now through no fault of their own or through little fault of their own. And we just decided to take her out because she was too controversial and we didn't want her to affect people reading the book.
I
So this,
suspect I know who you're talking about, but I'm not going to ask.
yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of things you have to deal with if you're a realist, and you can't be in publishing without being some kind of a realist, um, even though it doesn't have to dominate your behavior, but it is a consideration. And there are several people like that who, is one of the biggest puzzles of human existence is why somebody can do one thing and suddenly ruin their whole career. in the minds of the media and social networking. Uh, and so you don't want them to affect everything you're doing. So you have to make a hard decision. And who knows, we may put her in a future book.
Yeah, you and I were talking about that in the green room just a little bit. You thinking about having possibly a series of these books?
Yeah, we're working on a second book that's just irrelevant women who became relevant. And there are a lot of them in this book, but there's so many that we couldn't put in because there's just so many, as you said at the beginning. Uh, and we think these books will inspire others who are trying to decide what to do and whether to keep going or more not whether, because one thing that all of these people have in common is there's never a whether. They're always going to do it. They just don't know how. So maybe these books will give people examples of how to keep going.
Oh, I like that. Listen, Ken, was there a story in this book that surprised you the most, even after all of your research?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think one of them is not so much surprised me, but surprised me with the detail. I mean, I loved Taylor Swift, but I knew very little about her. And yet, when when we started doing the book and we saw how young she was when she went to Nashville and started asking people to listen to her, I was just amazed at the kind of detail and then the imagination that she continued to develop by wanting to take over the distribution of her own music and finally of her own movie. I mean, it was just it's inspiring. So that was one of them that inspired me the most because I knew very little about the detail. And there are people like Kalpana Chawla, who's the woman from India who ended up becoming an astronaut after trying forever to get into space sciences. She did it finally, and she was one of the ones who died in the terrible crash of one of the Apollo flights. And but it was from now she's a hero in her country, and the her death was the celebration of her life because I've always said that if you die pursuing your dream, isn't that by definition a happy death? So nothing could be better. I mean, it was horrible tragedy, Space Columbia, flight STS 87, etc. But she died doing what she spent her life longing to do, and that nothing could be better.
Oh, I agree with you, and I do remember that happening. If could add one more story to this book, not the next one, who would you choose? Is there somebody that you really felt needed to be there, but you couldn't cut anybody? Because they're all important. I mean, every story in here is amazing.
Yeah. So what do you mean? Somebody I would like to see in there?
Yeah, if you could have added just instead of making it 50, make it 51 or 49 and a half. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that there's a story that you really wanted in here, but there just wasn't room.
Well, Catherine the Great of Russia, she, for example, I wish we could have included her, and we will in the next book. Um, so the thing is that every question like that is incredibly personal because it turned out that these choices were personal. That Shalai and I, my partner and writer, co-writer, we had to fight about a lot of them because she brought my attention to people that I didn't really wasn't paying any attention to, and I did the same for her. But I mean, Diane Crump is an example that she brought me aware of, who was the first woman to ride in the Kentucky Derby. And she chose an impossible career because women weren't accepted as jockeys. And when I looked into it and we started telling her story, we realized she really had to be in this. So we dropped someone else in order to keep her in this one because again, our purpose is to inspire people. So we wanted to include a broad swath of people who did incredible things, uh, just so that as many as people as possible could read it and think, if she did it, I can do it. That's all you need is a little seed of hope, and you can make it happen.
Well, when you talk about a little seed of hope, Susan Boyle, who saw that coming?
But
Say
say
it again.
again.
Susan Boyle. I mean, who could
Oh
possibly
yeah, I know. I
see
love
that
Susan.
story? I do too. When I first, I don't watch TV. I've always said this. I don't watch TV, but somehow I came across maybe on YouTube and she showed up on whatever that show was. And I thought, oh, they're going to just eviscerate her because she wasn't an attractive woman. She looked, a little plain, a little dumpy and scared to death. And she opened her mouth and magic happened.
Yep. It's amazing because I mean,
Yeah.
in a few minutes, in 60 seconds, she transformed, an audience filled with doubt and almost ridicule
Yeah,
into
exact. That's what I saw too, is ridicule. I was so
yeah,
irritated with these, whoever they are, these people, and I thought, you
yeah,
haven't even heard her. What the heck? I was mad. And then she sang, and I went, okay, I love her.
yeah. So she's one of my favorite examples too.
Yeah, she's terrific, and she's still doing what she does. And she's a very smart woman, which again, when you're looking at these people looking at her, they didn't see anything about intellect. They just saw that she was a little dumpy, a little frumpy. But what they didn't see was who she was and what she brought to the world. Thank
Yeah,
goodness they gave her a chance, but that disdain, and that's the perfect word for it. I'm still mad about that. I didn't
yeah,
give, they were not going to give her a chance, but they were left with no choices at all.
yeah. I mean, and then there are heroic stories like Helen Keller that,
Right.
you can almost not believe how she transformed herself into an author, a multi-book author and leader and activist with the handicap she lived with. So don't tell me you can't do it. I mean, there's always somebody worse off than you that did it already. Um, so that's what people need to realize when they're fighting the fight. This is something they can keep close to their heart, that she got it done. I'm going to get it done too.
And you and I have talked a lot about reading. I am a voracious reader. I don't like video. I really don't. It doesn't capture me. If it doesn't capture me in the first 10 minutes, I'll go make a gumbo. I'm not going to stick around. But the written word for me, that's where magic is for me. And I've read most of your books. I have many of them here on what I call my entrepreneurial library. So we agree a lot on the written word, but not everybody's going to read. So you have to be where they are. Do they want video? Do they want audio? I want all of them. I don't want the video, but I will often take a book. I've got your paperback in front of me. I've got a PDF, and I'm not sure it's available on Amazon yet.
Oh
For
yeah,
the
it's available.
but I mean, yeah, as an audio, is it?
Oh, as an audio, no,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
yet.
As soon as it is, let me know, because I will often take the book, I'll take the Kindle book, and then I'll listen at the same time. I've got three things going on, and my brain just works like that. I can compartmentalize. And I find that I'm getting everything I need, but no video. Video just distracts me.
Huh,
I know,
interesting.
I know, I don't
But
like it.
everybody's different. That's the great thing.
That's exactly right. So, I guess I'm kind of speaking to the audience here. If you feel like you don't really want to write a book because you don't think anybody's going to read it, there's so many ways to get it out there. Audio, put it out on Audible, make it into a little TikTok video, do something with it. There's so many ways, and we all learn so differently. You're going to get it out there, but you can't just sit on it and go, well, I'm going to do that later. No,
Yeah.
do it now.
Yeah, that's what I was telling my students. Like, you're the only one who can do it. And if you don't do it, you've kind of turned your back on the world. And if that's what you want to do, okay. But what's the point of having a voice if you don't use it?
It's exactly right. And you have had such a multifaceted career: author, producer, literary manager. Which of these roles feels most like you right now, or do they all blend into your identity?
Well, Thank you for put it perfectly, because that's what happens is that as you continue doing these things year after year, they all do blend into just who you are. And uh, when I hear a story or see a story, I want to figure out how to make it, take it wider and let more people know about it. Just like when I was a kid, we couldn't wait to tell a new joke to everybody in the circle. Uh, that's what drives me, is that desire to share stories.
I wanted to ask you, Ken, in your own life, did you ever feel labeled irrelevant or overlooked? I can't imagine, but imagine it happened. It happens to all of us. So if it did happen, how did you handle it?
Well, that's part of how I wrote that introduction. I went back over my own, diaries and experiences. And the answer is, of course, I felt that way. I felt that way 1,000 times. And I just went and did something else. Uh, I just hate wasting time. So I found new ways to do things and started finding, recognition that I needed. Like everybody needs something. Some people need food, some people need love, and what I needed was recognition in the literary world. And I've had a lot of it now, and very satisfying amount of it. And it's weird. I Googled myself the other day because somebody wanted to know where to find certain information in one place. And I thought, after I read the Google page, I go, wow. So you really did a lot of this stuff in the story world. And my favorite thing is having a new client that I can help get their story straight, or, bring their book into the world, bring their film into the world. That's still one of the greatest moments I have on a daily basis, is to open something, start reading it, and recognize that this story is great and that it needs help and that I can provide the help.
And I like that you mentioned Google. What I do, because I get, podcast requests daily, even Saturday and Sunday. And the very first thing I do is I don't go to Google. Now, they've given me a lot of information, but it's from their point of view, their bias. That doesn't really help me very much. So instead of going to Google, I will go to Perplexity, like Chat GPT. But for this kind of research, I go to Perplexity. It is astonishing what they can tell you about yourself. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. But I
Yeah.
mean, that is the thing that people dreamed about centuries ago, is the moment when everything, everything that's in the world, we will be able to find and see, uh, and have it all at our fingertips. This goes back to, Plato and Dante and the greatest thinkers who ever lived dreamed of that moment.
They did. And, it wasn't that they were seeing to the future. Listen, I've shared this with you before, and I don't have any basis for stating it, but I believe it. There are no new ideas. They're
Huh.
all out there. They've always been out there. It's just what you're going to do with them.
That's right. Exactly.
S-
So,
you have launched so many books and films, but what have you noticed that separates the people who break through from the ones who give up? And we talked about it a bit, focus and the different things, but is there anything in particular that you notice that people just say, I quit. I quit. I'm
well,
done.
it's just persistence. It's a form of stubbornness. And
Oh, there it is.
I would say at least half of what I've accomplished has happened only because I persisted. Other people gave up, would just walk away, exhausted by this. But part of it, lurking behind that thought is time management. Like we've talked about this before, but I don't believe in waiting. So, people say, how can you wait 20 years for Meg to be made? I didn't wait. I did 1,000 other things in the meantime. And I'm constantly surprised on a daily basis of something that suddenly comes to life that that's been in my wheelhouse forever. And I wasn't waiting for it to come to life. I was doing something else, but suddenly it comes to life. And so I've learned that every creative vision or endeavor has its own clock. And the problem is that you can't see it. So what do you do in that case? Well, you do something else. That's all. And that's what I've done all my life is done something else while I'm supposed to be waiting for something. And I get so frustrated with writers say, I've waited long enough. I've been waiting for 6 years for this to be sold or whatever. So I'm going to go start a horse ranch in, Utah. And I don't blame them, but I also know that those are not the ones who succeed because nobody should be sitting there waiting. It's a ridiculous waste of time.
And it's also, you've self-written the ending of it. You gave it 6 years, that was it, and now you're done with it. Well, the universe is paying attention to that. So, okay, that's the way you want it. We're done
Yeah,
too.
exactly. That's exactly it. Don't write the ending. Make the ending happen by simply recognizing that this project will happen when it wants to happen. In the meantime, your job is to be working on something else while you're waiting for that one, and you're not really waiting anymore.
No, you're anticipating that one day it's going to show up and you'll be happy, but you're living your life.
Yeah. And it also helps you keep your perspective about making one project or, one set of projects the center of the universe. Because
Right.
this universe is not like that. This universe has got all this stuff going on at once. And anybody who watches, those shows on TV as I do about the natural world, there's all this stuff going on all the time. And you learn from that. You learn that as Tony Robbins said, take massive action. That is the solution to every issue. Gandhi said the same thing, extreme action. And you keep doing things long enough, and the universe listens to you and starts bringing these things. It's like flowers. You plant enough flowers, and some of them fall by the wayside, but you're not waiting for those. But suddenly you're surrounded by blooming flowers.
Exactly. And one of my favorite books is Napoleon Hill's The Science of Getting Rich. He says it all the time, take action. People say, "Well, I don't understand the book. What's the message?" Take action. Write it down. Take action.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know why people don't get that, but I'm one of those people, so I'll just run headlong into a wall and then go, ow, and then I'll go bang my head in it again until I get through it. So
Right, right.
I'm just big-headed.
In one of my books, I speculate like if you're really heading for a wall, wouldn't you rather be heading at 90 miles an hour than 20 miles an hour?
Yes. Yeah.
And I've always lived my life that way. I always, you could sit around worrying about the little details and this and that, but just go out full force. And I've watched my wife over the years build her company, Yoga Gives Back,
I
16 years
know.
now, fr-
Beautiful.
from a tiny, unknown company to a worldwide company that is getting bigger every year. And she just takes massive action. Every morning she gets up, she's, you know, having an interview with somebody in India. She's having an interview with somebody in Thailand. She just never stops, never stops, never stops. And that's how it happens. Meanwhile, you better be happy about what you're doing. And I am happy, despite this chaos that the world is living in right now. I'm happy because I'm talking about stories. On stories, I can never get tired talking about stories.
No, you can't. And I was actually mistaken. I was thinking Wallace Wattles, who I believe wrote The Science of Getting Rich. I was thinking of Napoleon Hill, and I ought to know better of this, but he wrote Think and Grow Rich, and everybody knows about that book. A lot of people don't really understand it, which I find surprising, but take action. That's all you have to do. Take action, right action, wrong action, hit that wall at 90 miles an hour, step back and go, ow, and then go try it again. Just
Yeah.
take action.
Shakespeare said, action is eloquence.
Ooh.
And, everybody who's accomplished anything knows that.
That's true.
Edison supposedly tested 10,000 elements before he invented the light bulb. Um,
Hmm.
it wasn't, nothing is easy. And the hard part is the great part, as people have said. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yep. And this book explores the power of mentors and allies, which I didn't really expect, like Julia Child. guiding cat Cora. Now, I believe she's a, what show is she on? She's a
Well, she
cook.
has her
She's
own,
a
she has her own
chef.
show. Yeah.
Oh, does she? See, I don't watch
Yeah.
TV. But wasn't that, oh God, it was years ago I came across her. I recognized her name when I read it. And I went, oh, I wonder what she's up to. So who have some of those pivotal encouragers been in your life?
Well, Anne Sullivan was, the mentor of, what's her name? I'm blanking on her name, but the blind girl I mentioned a minute ago. Um, mentors are essential, and they're the ones that allow you the break you're looking for. All of these people who are laboring to become irrelevant are all looking for one thing. They're looking for a break. A break is that sudden moment when you become visible. And I'd say half the time in this creative world, a break comes from a mentor who suddenly pays attention to what you're doing. And like Julia Child's break came when somebody asked her to co-write that book about French cooking. And that did it, because mastering the art of French cooking was what brought her in front of millions of people all over the world. And it wasn't even something that she was looking to do. So she had a break because she was noticed, by an editor, another form of ally. And
Right.
so that's essential part of it. I have been lucky to have so many editors and mentors over the years. John Gardner was one of my favorite ones. He once told me that, you know, that if you can't write clearly without complicated sentences, then you should go do something else. And I'll never forget, you know, how he liberated my language from the academic world to being able to communicate with, millions of people.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. I wanted to ask you, and you and I have talked about this before, Steve Alden, the Meg, because that
Yeah.
was a heck of a story, and goes back to what you were just talking about. It took forever.
Yeah, it took forever, but like as I was just saying, Steve didn't wait. He went on and wrote 10 other novels, most of whom which became New York Times bestsellers. So there is he's one of the most stubborn and persistent people I know. And why is that? Well, that's just that it's become the way he is. That's what he does. Like a ball player plays ball, he's a writer, he writes. I said in my first book about writing, A Writer's Time, a writer writes. When he's not writing, he's not a writer. I'll never forget, I was introduced at a party in Hollywood. This is Ken Atchity, my writer friend, and he said, "Oh, you're a writer. Say something in writing."
So what
And
did
the
you
truth is, I
say?
don't consider myself a writer unless I'm writing.
Oh, that makes sense. That
And
really
I
does.
don't consider myself a producer unless I'm producing, or, you know, a mentor unless I'm mentoring, or a coach unless I'm coaching. So you just play these many roles in life, and you give your heart and soul to them while you're playing them. But then a minute later, you're doing something else.
That is so true. I'll be in the middle of writing something, or I'll be, slightly editing the podcast, like I'll be doing this one in just a little bit. And then I'll say, I need to go cook something, and off I go. And while I'm at the stove, because I'm very creative when I'm in cooking mode, and I cook by the seat of my jeans. I mean, seriously, I can hear when the food needs to be turned. It's just something that I've always done. And my brain goes off. I'm not paying any attention to what's going into that pot. I really don't need to. And all of a sudden, my creativity just goes, hey, what do you think about this? Oh, let's do this. And I have to keep a notepad on the counter next to my stove, because I'm getting downloads like crazy.
Yeah. No,
But
that's
I'm not a cook. I'm not a cook. I'm just somebody who loves to cook, but I'm not a cook.
yeah. Well, I read when I was in Italy, I came across a saying that said there is more time than life. And
Mm.
that really struck me as amazing because people always ask me, where do you get the time? And, the answer is I don't have any more time than you do. Everybody has the same amount of time, which is infinite, basically. But you fill it up with action or you don't. I mean, I used to have a friend who he could sit in a chair, in his living room endlessly. I mean, virtually all day. I could call him at 4 in the afternoon and say, have you get started yet? No, actually, he's still reading the paper. And he just, I don't know what he did with his time, but he basically had during that time, I had already done 10 things that day. And I'm not, exactly proud of myself, but I certainly prefer the choice that I made of how to use time, um, because I knew that, all this action that people can see that I have done, um, I'm using the same amount of time they have available. So I really want to say to them, what are you doing with your time?
You know, and I think we've talked about this too, but I don't sleep well. I'm not an insomniac. Sleeping is just not one of my higher skills, and I don't miss it. I sleep, 2, 3 hours a night, maybe not all at once. I may wake up
Wow.
every couple of hours, and I've been known to go start a gumbo or vacuum or just get up and start writing. But I've always been this way, so it's nothing new to me. And I finally figured out not so very long ago that sleeping really just interrupts my reading time. So I just don't make a fuss over it. I'd rather
Right.
read and hit that wall at 90 miles an hour than try to sleep. Sleeping is just not my thing. Maybe as I get
Yeah,
older it will
exactly.
be. I
So,
don't know. It just isn't right now, though.
yeah, at some other time in your life, it might become a great thing.
Maybe.
Uh, but right now, you just, your mind would rather be doing something else.
Hmm. And I lucid dream on top of that. So, resting, I'll wake up exhausted because I was in the middle of one time I woke up and I had gone dancing on a wooden floor barefoot. I don't dance, but I felt like I had splinters in my feet. So
That's funny.
sometimes, yeah, I know. Sometimes sleeping is like, really? Do I have to? So give me a
Yeah.
good book or two or three.
The
But
the other night I dreamed I missed a bus in New York, a bus that was taking people to a play, and I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night because I'd missed the bus.
I do things like that. I was talking with my friend. It's time for us to start, worrying about the Christmas meals and the holiday meals. And I had ordered a blueberry cake on QVC to be delivered for Thanksgiving. And this was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I fell asleep. And then I started smelling burnt blueberries, and I had to jump out of my bed and go see if the oven was on. It wasn't. But
Oh,
that's just
good.
how my my brain translated what I was actually doing and what my dreamscape, I don't know. It's fascinating. I like to watch myself dream because I never know what's going to come up. I've written entire books. Are they published? No, because I never put pen to paper, but I've written them.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I bet you have
a-
too.
as you know from the introduction to this book, um, dreams and visions are 1 inch away from reality, and the waking artist turns them in, makes them reality. But other people just dream and don't bother, going up and baking the blueberry tart in the morning.
Right.
It's all about how you use the stuff that's coming out of your head.
Well, what's going to propel you? And I think that's what we don't as humans pay enough attention to. What is propelling me today? You know, what am I tolerating? That's the stuff you need to get rid of. But if you feel a strong, you wake up or, something hits you in the middle of the day and you, oh, I need to go do that. Go do it. Take action.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing stopping you from taking action.
Right. So, Ken, many people listening may feel stuck in their own irrelevance. We've been talking about that a bit. So, how do you recommend they start building their bridge from dream to reality? And that is such an important phrase, from dream to reality.
Well, I recommend that they simply decide in their heads one action that they're going to take, and then force yourself to take it. because it becomes habitual once you start into it. It's the problem that people don't start, and they don't start because they're thinking of the wrong things. They're thinking of all the reasons why this is useless, all the reasons why it won't work, all the reasons why it won't bring money to them, and all the reasons why the world won't recognize it. And I realized the other day when I thought this world cannot get more chaotic than it currently is. I think it was the day that Israel attacked Iran. And I suddenly thought to myself, you know what? There's something calming about that because I don't have to deal with that. I'm dealing with stories and I can do that, and I can do that next hour and I can do that 2 hours from now and I can do that tomorrow. And I suddenly felt very calm about the chaos of the world because the chaos is tamed by control, and control comes from create applied creativity. You start working on a story, for example, and during that process, you feel very calm because you're not being asked to solve the Palestinian problem. You're not being asked to figure out what to do about Medicare. You know, all these things beyond our control. Most of the time, I have the news turned off because I
You
can't.
and me both. I can't stand it.
Yeah, and it's not. I started thinking about it. Of course, I can stand it. I used to be a journalist, but I don't want to stand it. That's the problem because there's nothing I can do about most of it. Um, I go to a demonstration. If I can, I write something if I can, but mostly I want to focus on storytelling because that I know how to do, and I know how to get people doing it and to keep them doing it and so on. I have a coaching program for that, keep me in touch with actual writers. And so, yeah, I just, it's selective perception. You've got to stop doing the stuff that does not help you feel good about your control over life.
No, I agree with you. And my attitude has always been if it doesn't directly impact me and I can't do a thing about it, I'm not going to put it in my list of things to worry about.
Yeah, good for you. That's exactly what you have to do.
It doesn't make any sense. And listen, the more people, this is just my opinion, but the more people tune into the news, whatever, however you're getting your news, I firmly believe that it's impacting our globe in a way that we seem to be operating under a sense of low-level dread and have for a long time. And I don't want to live like that.
Right. Yeah,
It's
absolutely. It's
sad.
take control of what you can.
Exactly. So what are you up to next? I know you mentioned a new book coming up, but what's going on? I mean, you have so many hats to wear. Do you have any new movies coming out? What are you doing?
Well, we have a series that we're about to close. We have a movie that's in casting now, and another one where we're changing director, actually two where we're changing directors. So there's always something, and we have new projects that we've just signed that we're thrilled about. So there's just never a dull moment. I have to force myself to take a walk once in a while just to, get some headspace.
I know how you feel because every once in a while, and I'll realize that my back hurts, or worse than that, my butt hurts because I've been in my chair too long. And
Yeah.
that's when I jump up, grab the dog, and off we go. And she's like, "But I was taking a nap." Come on, let's go because I need to get out and get some fresh air, even in the rain. And listen, I'm in the middle of hurricanes. Well, the beginning of hurricane season. It started in June, the 1st of June. And here, our summers are mostly pretty wet. It rains a lot. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't even bother with an umbrella. I'm going to get
Well, that's
drenched
one of the great
anyway.
things about it's one of the great things about dogs, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, okay, we're coming. But yeah, you just go outside, take a breath, take a lot of breaths. And I don't meditate well. I never have been able to shut my squirrel brain down. But when I'm walking with her, especially if it's a downpouring rain, I fall into kind of a walking meditation, which I find is very helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Anything you can do, like cooking, walking, that puts you in a meditative state is a good thing for your brain.
That's exactly right. So are there any, and I shouldn't even ask you this, but I'm going to, and you can tell me no if you want to, but Are there any people in this book that really, really, and I'm not going to use the word favorite, but you're just so impressed with their stories? I mean, I'm
You
sure
know,
you all of them, but there's got to be a top three.
well, yeah, J.K. Rowling, I love her
Me
story. I love,
too. Me too.
yeah, I love Viola Davis's story. I love, Franklin Roosevelt's story because people think of him and they don't even realize he was crippled and unable to walk most of his career. Um,
See,
I
that
was,
that astonishes me. I mean, how, if you know anything about history, how could you not know that he was in a wheelchair?
yeah, well, because he didn't bring attention to it. That's why he
Well,
didn't,
I knew it.
he always had his son walk him to, up to the podium, and he wasn't. That's not something he wanted people to focus on. So there was, you find inspiration everywhere, but it's bringing inspiration to people is one of my big functions in life.
What, and I'm going to ask again because I know you've got different ways of expressing this, but what got you started doing this? I know you're an intensely curious man. I know you've got a lot of different talents. Was there any point, Ken, where you just said, this isn't working for me. I've got to go do something different?
Well, I think my mother is my biggest inspiration because she used to tell me when I was a kid, "Hey, if he can do it, why can't you do it?" Nothing, stopped her. She always thought, if they can do it, you can do it. And I am so grateful to her for having that attitude toward life. Like she was the kind of person where somebody was talking about, you really need to paint the living room. And the next day she's down at the hardware store buying paint. She's never painted anything in her life. And, I always knew she was in that mood when suddenly the bedrooms changed color and my mother was there by herself repainting everything. Because she figured other people do it. Why can't I do it?
Right, right. You've written about your mom and your dad. One of my favorite books, though, is when you wrote your own obit.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Um,
about that a little bit.
well, I'm thinking about writing volume three now. I've already done two volumes, but because something that's happening in my family, there's just nobody would believe it unless they read it. Um, and but I have to play it out and let's see what happens to it. But I always feel like if something happens that's worth talking about, because my aunts in the kitchen would talk endlessly about things that are happening. My uncles on the porch would tell stories about it. I always thought that's the purpose of life is you see, you experience, and then you tell about it. You tell. And Edmund Burke said, if you live, you need to speak your mind. And so I'm always looking for opportunities to speak my mind, and sometimes you have to wait because the story isn't ready to be told yet. But yeah, when the time comes, I'll be ready.
And you need to come back on the show when that one's ready. Ken, thank you so much for joining me today and every time you've ever been on this show and for sharing your insights on storytelling, underdogs, and the impact of outsiders. And
Well,
you've given
thank you for
us,
having me, Denise. And
oh,
if
anytime.
if anybody's looking for help, you can reach me at atchity@storymerchant.com.
I was just going to ask you where they could find you. So before we wrap up, is there anything new that you're working on? You kind of shared that, but where can people connect with you and your book outside of maybe LinkedIn and other places?
Yeah, just atchity@storymerchant.com, and I'm here with the need to help you.
I know. You're one of my favorite people. I remember
Thank you.
telling
You
you,
too.
thank you. Some
Thank
years
you.
ago, I remember telling you that I had five top, five top people that were my favorites. You were there, my Ken Ben Gay, my friend Ben Gay the third is definitely one of them, and my dear late friend Dr. Jim Tunney was one of them. So
Well,
I
thank you
have,
so much.
yeah, I've always appreciated you. So listen, everybody, thank you for joining us today for this fascinating conversation. With Dr. Ken Atchity, we have explored how so-called irrelevance, the underdogs, the outsiders, and overlooked have shaped history in ways that no one expected. Susan Boyle is one of them. From athletes and artists to activists and entrepreneurs, Ken's stories remind us that labels they don't define us, and that resilience, vision, and a little bit of luck and a lot of focus can turn anyone into a world changer. So as you go about your week, remember the bridge from dream to reality is narrow and sometimes shaky, but it's worth crossing. Don't be afraid to dance on that razor's edge, ignore the doubters, and pursue what you love. You never know. You might just rock the world too. So until next time, keep believing in your own relevance. And Ken, thank you as always.
Thank you, Denise. You're the best. Keep
Thank you.
on rocking.
Oh, definitely. I'm taking you as one of my, I don't know, your mindset kind of lives inside my head every once in a while. So thanks again.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.